All right, Brandon. So we had the opportunity to play probably what I would say up until the direct, at least, was the most hotly anticipated Switch 2 title. The
Yeah.
hotly anticipated game from Nintendo, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
Yes.
We have gotten to play it, and in true Nintendo fashion, we've played the Switch 2 version before the Switch 1 version.
It's crazy to think that, but Metroid Prime 4 is real. We played it. It's not a figment of your imagination. And I really like the way Nintendo chose to demo it. Because we played it in 1080p, 120 FPS, in mouse mode.
Yep. So the demo stations that we got to play the game at did not have a Pro Controller at them. They just had two loose Joy-Con for us to use. And while they told us we could play however we want, every demoist told us that we should try mouse mode. And they had a big old desk mat in front of the TV. They were basically screaming at you to do it that way. And I have to say that's for very good reason. But before we get into the specifics of the controls, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge just how gorgeous this game looks on Switch.
What in the world is Retro doing, and how do they do it?
It is deeply impressive what they've done here. This holds up very well to, games on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. It looks that good, especially in cutscenes.
Every time I saw Samus in a cutscene, I was like, this isn't real, right? Like, that can't be in engine, but it is. Like, her suit is so sharp, it's shiny, this is HD Nintendo. I feel like we're finally actually there.
Yeah, it's very wild to think about the fact that not only did we get our very first, really clean looking, HD game in this series, and because obviously Prime Remastered, props where it's due. It's a beautiful game, but
Yeah.
This is the first from the ground up designed for the HD era Prime game, and to not only be playing it like this gorgeous looking game, but to be playing it at 120 frames per second on a portable console is just surreal. You and I both predicted that there would be 120 FPS games on Switch 2. I don't think either of us expected it to be Metroid.
Never in a million years, but you know what? The more I think about it, it should have been obvious. Like, the team over at Retro got Metroid Prime Remastered 1080 60 locked, and it was incredible. So it makes sense that they would be the ones to do it. It's also worth noting, in the Direct, as you all saw, this is the one game that they took the time to say, this is the resolution and this is the frame rate.
Yeah, that was very interesting. And the demo stations that we went to actually had the resolution and frame rate on the marquee, printed on, to the point that I actually had to ask someone from Nintendo, were there 4K demo stations that we could try, because they had all these 1080p 120 hertz labeled stations, and unfortunately they said that there were no stations running the 4K mode of the game, that you
Which
could only
runs
play
at
it.
60 FPS, by
Yeah.
the way, which is still ridiculous.
Yeah, 4K 60 is crazy to see on Switch 2 on a game that looks this good in particular. But I have to say, mouse mode, which obviously was heavily encouraged, just fit this so well. It was incredible, especially with such a high frame rate paired with that. I can't think of a shooter I've played in recent memory that's more responsive than Prime 4.
Yeah, it felt crazy good to play. I thought it was interesting because the game felt more action-y than previous Metroid Prime games did, especially you have encounters with enemies, you're fighting space pirates. It felt like a proper shooter in that regard. But it was very fast. The enemies weren't fast, but you're fast, right? Because of the mouse.
Right.
But one thing that stood out to me was in the boss battle at the end of the demo, the monster fuses with a Metroid and then spawns Metroid bulbs on its body that are its weak points. And it really felt like that battle was designed with mouse mode in mind because of the way it worked. his body was like invulnerable to damage, but those Metroid like sprouts were vulnerable. And if you even slightly missed the bulb of Metroid matter, I guess, your shot would bounce off. You had to be very precise. And I'm like, this was a battle designed with this control scheme.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. There's some ways in which developers kind of make their intentions known, and I feel like they really want you to use that mouse mode. There are also doors leading to that encounter where you have to scan the door, then lock onto the center of the door, and then aim shots in each of the four corners of the door, which just feels so natural in mouse mode to move between them quickly and knock these things down. But I wanted to go...
And to be clear, this would work in like gyro with motion controls as well, but there's something about mouse mode that just feels right.
Yes, and to be fair, I do want to clarify on gyro mode. Nintendo did say that they could not confirm that the Pro Controller gyro was supported yet. It seems like it almost certainly will be, but they wanted to be very clear with me when I asked that there's no news to share about that at this time. But I want to step back for a second to the more actiony nature of it that you mentioned, because that was something I felt immediately as well. It was very interesting to see, and I believe, though we weren't told, that we were playing the very opening moments of the game.
Yeah.
It felt very much like this was moment one of the game.
That original teaser trailer, that was the section of the game we played.
Yep. And so we run in, and you're immediately thrust into an encounter between, humans and space pirates. And there's like 5-6 space pirates in every room, and just playing in mouse mode, you can zip between them so quickly and take them out. And it was just thrilling. I was playing this, and I remember thinking to myself at moments that this is what I wanted Halo to feel like.
Yeah.
Like you had Samus actually interacting with people talking to her. You get map data from an NPC. Like, instead of having to find it like in a Chozo statue, like they're just like, here you go, Samus, I'll upload this to your visor for you, and you just get the whole map right then. And I was like, you know what? I like that, because Samus's relationship with the Federation has always been just in the relegated to lore entries and pamphlets and stuff, and this time you actually get to see her, engaging with them, and her helping them with an operation. Mm-hmm. And I saw this, and I was like, I would love for Retro to make a Halo after this.
Oh my god, it's so good. Scanning is back, and it feels exactly the way you'd expect it to. There was a bunch of stuff to scan in the demo. I didn't do a bunch of scanning because I was like, I gotta get going through this demo. But it's very Metroid Prime in that regard. But like we've said, this is the opening of the game, so like that kind of isolated feeling that you get from the previous Metroid Prime games has not settled in at this point in the plot yet. But I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah, I'm certain it is. The demo ends with a mysterious purple explosion that I can only imagine does other purple things later in the game. But it very much felt like just the introductory, here's how you get used to the controls, here's how you do this. One thing that I found really remarkable about this is that this was another example of a Switch 2 game that very seamlessly transitions from mouse mode to, regular Joy-Con mode. You just pick it up off of whatever surface you're mousing on, whether that's your desk or the Nintendo recommended use of your leg, and you're back. It knows that you're no longer using it like a mouse, and I just could not get enough of how that worked.
Yeah, you're just immediately in the other control scheme. It was brought up during the developer Q&A that there was no button toggle to change that. No, you just pick it up and it just switches control schemes. It's seamless.
Yeah, and I really like that idea that games can just interpret your intent and work. I mean, to be fair, in the time that I played the demo twice, and I never at any point experienced a single issue with the controls. Whether I was using the Joy-Con in mouse mode or I was picking it up. And after that developer Q&A, I intentionally tried once or twice to just pick it up and see if I could, make it mess up. And it didn't miss. Like, it didn't hiccup at all. We still don't know when this game's coming out, which seems weird. It feels like a launch title, but we still don't have a release date for it. But this is one to watch. I am beyond impressed with what Retro has pulled off here. I'm pretty sad this isn't a launch title.
I am too, but I think it makes sense given the slate of releases that we've seen over the course of the day. One thing I wanted to mention about mouse mode before we finish up here is you're still pressing buttons on the right Joy-Con to do certain things, like going into Morph Ball mode. You can jump either using the left Joy-Con L button or using the B button on the right Joy-Con. And I found in my time playing the game that I struggled to like figure out what the correct grip for that right Joy-Con is for me, because the buttons weren't quite where my finger felt like they should be when holding it that way. And then the left click and the right click both did different things. Like was left click was missiles, right?
Yes.
And then right click was your beam cannon. I'm sure it would be different if I had more time, and also if I was playing seated. We were standing for this particular demo. But I feel like there's going to be an adjustment period there. I was kind of wishing that I could change some of the controls, and, well, actually, that might be a thing we can do. But control, like, Morph Ball mode and other stuff on the left Joy-Con instead, just for comfort's sake.
Yeah, I've struggled with the visors. So B wasn't an issue for me. I was using B to jump. My thumb very naturally rested on the B button on the right Joy-Con, but Y and X were a different story, and I would constantly hit the wrong one. I ended up going into Morph Ball when I meant to go into Visor, and going into Visor when I meant to go into Morph Ball, and it became an issue, especially because that boss in the demo, one of his attacks required you to dodge it by becoming a Morph Ball, and so I would just sit there and scan it while it blew me away. So it'll be interesting to see how they address that, because obviously the Joy-Con are already pretty big. And I honestly think Pro Controller is not going to be the way to play this game. I think it's not going to be the right way to experience Metroid Prime 4, because mouse mode offers such accuracy and such speed that I can't imagine a controller even matching it. In fact, there's probably a whole discussion we could have about just how much the competitive shooter landscape is going to change thanks to Switch 2's mouse mode.
Fortnite comes out on launch day.
Yeah, and that is going to be a deeply interesting one to play, especially if it's at 120 FPS. So, but either way, Metroid looks fantastic. I suspect we'll be waiting a little bit longer for this game, even though it just seems weird to me, because some of the games on the show floor obviously needed more time. They could benefit from a month or two past launch. We'll be talking about those ones later on. But this one felt ready to go. Like, yeah, it felt incredibly polished. Like it could be a retail product right now today. So it's kind of shocking to me that it's not a launch title, just because I didn't see a hint, even the slightest hint of an idea that this game wouldn't be ready to be released whenever Nintendo wants to pull the trigger.
Yeah, it feels super polished, and like they could have told me that was the retail version and I would have believed them.
Yeah, if it isn't, I don't know what they need to work on. So either way, Metroid Prime 4 is super impressive. Keep your eyes on GVG for much more on the game when we find out when it releases. And of course, stay tuned right here for much more on the Switch 2. We played a lot of Switch 2 games, and there is a lot more to come. There's still Donkey Kong. There's still Switch 2 Edition games, not to say nothing of third-party stuff. So we have a lot more for you. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Until then, bye.
Bye.